Well, welcome everybody to our question and answer for this week. I'm not sure how many weeks we've even done this, but Pam Case, who is a senior producer for the Huckabee Show here on TBN, is with me. She will be moderating our discussion. So you can send your questions in, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. We've got some videos that we want to respond to, things that have happened this week. And so we hope that you will join with us. Pam, I think people are already starting to respond, aren't they?
They are very excited about that. As we often say, this is the opportunity for the viewers to have direct contact to Governor Huckabee. This doesn't happen on television during the week. We have our show on Saturday nights, of course, here on TBN as well. But we can get started with, let's see here. What do we have here? Something new, do we? We can start with the clip. You want to do that?
Let's do that. Let's start with one. This week, President Biden made a comment about how we would have to have certain weapons to defend ourselves from the government. What he said is a little bit bizarre. Watch.
The Second Amendment, from the day it was passed, limited the type of people who could own a gun and what type of weapon you could own. You couldn't buy a cannon. Those who say the blood of patriots, you know, and all this stuff about how we're going to have to move against the government. Well, the tree of liberty is not water with the blood of patriots. What's happened is that there never been, if you wanted to think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons.
That's right. We'll all get us some F-15s and nuclear weapons so we can take on the government. First of all, it was hard to even understand what the heck was he saying. It was word salad, if I've ever seen it, with lots of tomatoes in the bowl. It's sometimes bizarre listening to him make a response like that isn't carefully scripted, and even then. But first of all, he makes a big error when he says that there were all kinds of limitations on the Second Amendment. That would be news to most of us who have read it and who have followed the Second Amendment cases through the courts. But I think it's interesting. He virtually almost destroyed this idea that January 6th was an insurrection. Because if you're going to overthrow the government, he said, you're going to need F-15s and nuclear bombs. These folks had a few flagpoles and backpacks. I mean, it's always been ludicrous to say that that was an insurrection. I've said all along, it was some people just innocently caught up and walked in and didn't do anything. And then there were others, some real knuckleheads, who went in and did stupid stuff like take things off Nancy Pelosi's desk and put their feet up and break a window. But none of that was insurrection. You can't overthrow the U.S. government with a doggone backpack or flagpole. I mean, come on. And the only person that day on January 6th was a Trump supporter, one of the protesters, who was shot by a still unnamed police officer in the Capitol. Yeah. And all this talk about that there were police officers who were killed that day, turns out their autopsy showed that, in fact, did not happen. So
we do. We've got some other clips we'll talk about a little bit later, but want to shout out to the UK this afternoon. Brian Goodwin is over there, says hello today. Gloria Koch from Oregon. We've got Chantel Dion Bonjour from Quebec, Canada. And Jay Richardson says hello from North Carolina. All right. Hey, Governor. This is from Terry Bellew. Watching your YouTube video clips and live Q&A is a highlight most days.
Excellent.
I love your humor, your sarcasm, and your intellect. I'm in California visiting my kids, but when I get home to PA, I know.
Yeah.
I will definitely check out your TBN show, and thanks for all you do to keep us sane, sir.
Well, thank you. And I hope one day to be sane myself. If I ever get there, I hope to share it with all of our viewers. Now, you know, I really think sometimes what we lack in all of the political conversation is a sense of humor. Some people take so much so seriously, they never get to step back and just say, isn't this bizarre? Isn't this strange? Isn't this funny? And some of it is funny. Some of it is scary. I get it, but some of it is funny. We're going to show a clip. This is, I think, clip number 2 and 3. This is Joe Biden a week ago, basically yelling at a female reporter for comments that he made about Putin. And then I want you to see the contrast when this week he is doing his stage whisper. It's Really, really strange. Watch.
Why are you so confident it'll change his behavior, Mr. President?
I'm not confident in changing behavior. What do you do all the time? When did I say I was confident? I said what I said was, let's get it straight. I said what will change their behavior is if the rest of the world reacts to them and it diminishes their standing in the world. I'm not confident of anything.
Joe Biden off his meds. Now we're going to see Joe Biden after he has been medicated and he's much calmer. Let's watch this one.
I got them $1.9 trillion relief so far. They're going to be getting checks in the mail that are consequential. I wrote the bill on the environment. Pay them more. This is an employees bargaining chip now. What's happening?
What's happening?
I'll tell you what's happening, Pam. What? We're doing a live Q&A. And I think we could do it Joe Biden style. Okay. I would just whisper real loud into the microphone. Wow.
And you heard it here. And folks are writing in. We invite you, of course, to join us. This is your opportunity to have direct contact with Governor Huckabee. And also put your comments in the chat. Give us a question. Governor will answer. And of course, like it, ring the bell, and share it with your friends to participate today. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Audrey from Wisconsin, really love the way you explain things. And I think most Americans don't understand that we are up against Marxists. Even the moderate left may not want to lose America to them.
I think sometimes we get lost in some of the words that people say. I'm not a socialist. Okay, maybe not in the classic sense, but if you believe that government should take more of what we have worked for and earned and redistribute it so that there is a greater sense of equity, which means there's a spread of the wealth. You remember that phrase when Barack Obama said it? We got to spread the wealth around. Well, socialism is basically saying that when you work, the government is going to take an increasing amount, not for taxes so that we can pay for fire trucks, police stations, and streets and curb and gutter. No, so that we can pay for all kinds of social programs, often for people that didn't work as hard as you. Look, I got no problem helping people who are children, ill, who need surgery. Fine. People who have had calamities and health issues and need to be boosted up. People who have lost their jobs through no fault of their own, and we have unemployment insurance for that. But what we have is a government who thinks that the government is essentially going to be our nanny. If I could even go so far as to say, some believe government replaces God and we depend upon government. I'm going to give you a real quick summation of the difference between the left and the right. Not so much Democrat and Republican. Forget the parties, left and right. You are either a collectivist or you an individualist. And if you're a collectivist, you believe that we are who we are and that we have our rights based on our collective rights. So it's about being black or female or a union member, but it's about the group that you are a part of, the collective. If you're more conservative, you believe in individualism. You believe that you are who you are, made in the image of God. Your rights come from God. You're ultimately responsible to God for yourself, and that there are no limitations other than the ones that you put on yourself. Even if you have to work a little harder to get there, you are an individual and nobody can hold you back, and you're not held back because of whatever group that you're naturally part of. That's what I do think people miss often.
Thank you, Governor. We have another comment and question. Ronald Fleury from Albuquerque, New Mexico says that Senator Martin Heinrich will vote for the People Act, and I'm against it, but I need some specific reasons to oppose it. Can you give me reasons to oppose this bill?
Well, in its original form, it did not really put an emphasis on voter ID, which is absurd to most of us who think that, why shouldn't you have some verification that the person who is voting is the person who has the right to vote? Because if someone votes illegally, then they're taking your legal vote away from you, nullifying it. That's one. A second, and this is the big one. Frankly, this is even bigger than voter ID because it's a constitutional issue. The Constitution leaves the conducting of elections to the individual states. There's nothing in the Constitution that gives the federal government the power and authority to conduct a national federal election. Our electoral college system is a collection of the state processes. A lot of people may not fully understand that, but states conduct elections, not the national government. And so for Congress to do this, they need to change the Constitution. And if they don't, I think on its face, their bill is unconstitutional. And why on earth, with all that the federal government messes up, would we want to entrust something this big to them and have a one-size-fits-all? I certainly don't. I don't trust them, and I think it would be a disaster.
And a reminder about the super chat now. We have one from Cynthia Langley, and thank you, Cynthia. And so when that happens and someone gives a little cash, gives a little donation, their chat moves up to the top. So I want you to know that. Thank you.
We don't
Cynthia.
get the money, though.
We don't. No, we don't get it. So Cynthia Langley says this: the whispering from President Biden gives me the heebie-jeebies. And she says, hello from Diamondville, Wyoming, Mayor and the Missus. So.
Well, thank you, Cynthia. It gives me the creeps, too, to be honest with you. I listen to it. I mean, if you did that one time and just kind of as a point of emphasis, I'd say, okay. But he kept doing it. It was like 4 or 5 times in the same presser. He would lean into the microphone and get this long whisper. And I didn't understand where that was coming from. It did not fit the context of the comments. So I'm totally in agreement with you, Cynthia, and thank you for calling out our I guess
Rush you right in, and it was a super chat.
Super chat, yeah.
Moved right in there.
Going online in. There we go.
Absolutely. So David Breen, this connects. Why can't the Senate just demand that Biden take a cognitive test?
Well, that would be a separation of powers issue. You can't have the Senate tell the executive branch what to do any more than you can have the executive branch tell the members of Congress that they got to take a cognitive test. And boy, that would probably empty about 400 of the 535 total seats in the House and Senate if that were to ever be done. I won't tell you which 400 would go and which 135 would stay. By the way, be sure, hit the subscribe button so that you will know when we're going to be doing various things. We have lots of videos that we post during the week. If you hit the notification bell, you heard that just like that. That way you'll know when we have a video that's ready. Leave us a comment, whether you like what we're doing or don't. And also hit the like button and share this with other people, because I bet you got friends that probably would enjoy it. And you know what? I bet you got some friends that it would blow their heads off if you did it. So do it just for the fun of it to really mess up their Friday. Why not? Yeah.
And absolutely. In the next, we still have right at 10 minutes left to have direct contact for Governor Huckabee. We are live, as a reminder, here today. David Phillips has written in and says, simply, close the borders.
Well, you know, that's what we were in the process of doing under President Trump. We were building the wall. It was going along well. Wasn't quite completed, but we had hundreds and hundreds of miles more of it. We had the border under control. We didn't always have it in the early days of the Trump administration, but he made some significant changes. The biggest one of which is not something you hear much about now, was the stay in Mexico policy, that if someone came to the border and they said, I want asylum, they didn't just come across, we turn them loose, and then we go look for them. They stayed on the Mexican side of the border until they had a time for a hearing. And that way, people didn't just rush to the border thinking they were going to walk right over. What we have now is an absolute disaster because the border is being overwhelmed. Let's talk about that for a moment, because Vice President Kamala Harris, after 94 days of being in charge of the border crisis, finally went to the border. Now, remember when Vice President Pence was given charge of the Commission on COVID? Imagine what would have happened if for 94 days he never met with that commission or had anything to say about COVID. People would have been screaming their heads off. She finally went, and I think the reason she went was because when former President Trump announced he was going to go to the border, she couldn't let him get there before she did. But notice where she went: El Paso, not Del Rio, not McAllen, and not Donna, Texas, where the real crux of the crisis is, but El Paso, where we have a very solid wall, pretty solid control. And so when people don't know Texas very well, they may not realize it's 800 miles between McAllen and El Paso. Put it in perspective. It's further from Chicago to Washington, D.C. than it is from El Paso to McAllen. And while she was there this morning, I thought it was very fascinating because Veronica Escobar, who is the congresswoman and hosted the vice president, made this comment. She said that El Paso is the Ellis Island of the southern border. Now, Pam, there's a problem with that, calling it Ellis Island. And here's the thing. I don't guess the congressman understands that Ellis Island, where the Statue of Liberty is, was never a port of pass-through. People didn't just get off the ship, walk through the gate, and off they go. They were quarantined. They were health screened. They were screened for criminal activity. And a bunch of people never got past Ellis Island. They were put on the next boat back to Europe, and they never saw the interior of the U.S. because we didn't let everybody in. And some of them were quarantined for indefinite periods of time because they had smallpox or rheumatic fever or various diseases. They weren't turned loose in the population. So this idea that Ellis Island, bring your masses, and it was never an open border, never. And so if she says it's going to be Ellis Island, I'd say, good. Well, that's what we've been wanting. We've been wanting health screenings and criminal background checks to see when these people come in. So, Congresswoman, if you're serious about that, bravo to you. I just don't think you knew what you were talking about.
Thanks, Gov. Heather Tews has written in and says, Governor Mike Huckabee, do you trust the FBI anymore? I have lost my trust in them. That's
a sad thing. I think for many of us, I've lost my trust in the leadership. I still believe there are many rank and file agents up and down the rosters who are good, honorable people of integrity. But I must painfully admit that I share a lot of your disdain for the leadership of the FBI. I believe at the top, the organization has become politicized and weaponized. And we've seen too many instances of it, whether it was the ridiculous arrest of Roger Stone at 5:30 in the morning with a CNN crew that just happened to be there, and rushing him and frog marching him across his front yard in his pajamas with his wife, who is deaf, being scared out of her mind with people rushing in with automatic weapons and screaming orders for something that could have been handled by calling his attorney and say, be in the office at the downtown bureau at 10 o'clock with your lawyer. That would have been really simple. There was no reason to go through that. And we've seen time and again the abuses, and particularly as it related to the Crossfire Hurricane operation that was a total farce and hoax trying to entrap President Trump and the people around him. So sadly, I share some of your anxiety.
So we still have roughly 5 minutes left and plenty of time for people to still put a question or comment into the chat for you to respond to today. Like this is a super chat. Another one, Junior Gottlieb has written us, and he says, I wish more people on the right and center would talk about the real agenda behind opening the borders, which is flipping Texas blue. What are your thoughts on that, Gov?
I think it's one of the big reasons. It's to presume that everybody who comes across the border is going to vote for Democrats. Interestingly, I think increasing numbers of Hispanic voters are beginning to wake up and recognize that it is not in their best interest to vote for Democrats. They're going to lower wages. They're going to make it more difficult for people to advance. And the very reasons that people do come here for opportunity, for entrepreneurial capacities, are going to be diminished as the government gets bigger and bigger and makes it harder for the entrepreneurs to survive. Do I think it's their agenda? Yes. Do I think it ultimately succeeds? Not sure. And what I feel we have to do, those of us who are conservative, is to remind people, you didn't come to America because you wanted the government to run your life. That's what was going on where you came from. You came to America because you wanted freedom. You wanted the ability to start your own business, make your own way. You wanted the ability to advance your position of potential wealth and ownership society. And you can't do that if the government has its boot on your neck, which is what the left wants to do.
It wouldn't be a live stream, Gov, if we didn't hear this comment from Kay Gibbons.
Okay.
Will you run for president? I'll vote for you.
Kay, thank you. I appreciate it. But no, I will not. I've done it twice. Obviously, it didn't turn out. That's why I'm doing a Q&A on Friday afternoon. And I love what I'm doing. But I feel like that, after you've given it a couple of tries, it's obvious that voters have picked someone else. As I often say, I had to get out of the last presidential race because of illness. People were sick of me, so I decided it was time to go. So thank you. But if yours is the only vote I got, it would be pretty tough to get there. But thank you very much.
Okay, while we still have time, a reminder for folks to make sure that they subscribe and they ring the bell and do all the things to keep following us so they'll get notifications on future live streams. We do have time for probably one more question. This one, Governor, from Patrick Laughlin. What do you think of the new gun laws and procedures Biden and the ATF are trying to push through?
I honestly think they're trying to push through anything that will disarm the law-abiding public. This is what's very disturbing to me. I want guns out of the hands of criminals. I want us to make sure that we don't get guns into the hands of criminals in the first place. I just want to remind you that we can pass all the laws in the world, but the criminals don't abide by the laws we have. So why do we think at all that they're going to start abiding by new laws? A criminal rarely ever goes to a gun shop and buys a gun. Rarely ever. I mean, I think I read the stat sometime, and the number of people who are criminals who bought a gun at a gun show, which is the big boogie bear for many of the Democrats. It is so small that it's almost uncountable, because criminals don't go to gun shows to get their guns. They steal them, they buy them on the streets, they buy illegal guns. And the point is, if you're going to break the law with the gun, you probably aren't going to go through the process of filling out the paperwork to buy a gun legally. And a lot of the Democrat politicians have clearly never bought a gun, because they have no idea that you do fill out pages of paperwork and you do go through a background check already. But the people who don't abide by the laws we have are not going to abide by laws we create, so it's total nonsense. And just be aware, I think it's an attempt to take the capacity of law-abiding people to defend themselves and their property, and that's a constitutional right. By the way, be sure to leave your questions in the comments section, because we'll maybe pick some of those up for the next time. You can always email us a question at my2cents@tbn.tv. And as we've told you, let us remind you as we close out today, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you become one of our regular subscribers. Hit the notification bell that you just heard, and be sure, especially, watch this show on TBN, The Huckabee Show, at 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock Eastern, 7:10 Central. We got a terrific lineup of guests: Senator Bill Haggerty, Judge Ken Starr, and here's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about those guys. We've got Lady Houdini. She puts herself all shackled together in a tank, a huge tank of water like Harry Houdini did. And we will watch her, see if she can get out. And we hope she can, because
1,400 pounds on this stage of water. She'll be on the inside.
Pretty scary. And Tony Jackson, one of our very favorite country artists, is going to be with us. Be sure and watch this weekend on TBN. Thanks for joining us for our live Q&A. We'll see you next time. Pam Case and Mike Huckabee here saying goodbye. God bless. Have a great weekend.